Welcome back to WCB Jazz Vinyl. So there were three pretty big announcements today that I'm excited to talk about, and I want to cover each of them in turn. So the first one is an 8 LP box set of one of the greatest jazz albums of all time. The second one is the latest Electric Recording Company release. It happens to be a Bill Evans title, so that's exciting. And then the third is the announcement that is actually hasn't actually come out yet, but Craft Recordings teased their latest small batch release, and it doesn't really take a genius to figure out what that is. So I want to talk about each of these three things. As always, hit like if you like this sort of content. It's an increasingly crowded space out here on YouTube, and that's the best way that you can let them know if the content that you're watching is something that you actually like, then they recommend it to others. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right, so first, this 8 LP box set. So let me start with, this is being put out by Vinyl Me Please. And they have not announced it yet, at least from their own, sort of social media or on their website. So here's the situation. I'm looking at google.com/news, which is really one of the few places I can even stomach getting news these days. And of course, I'm into jazz music, and they give me updates that are sourced from a variety of publications. And guess what? Something caught my eye today. It was an article by the Denver Post, and this was the headline. It read, "After delay, Denver's Vinyl Me Please will start pressing LPs soon. These are the 5 biggest for 2024. Now, I knew that VMP had expected to have their new pressing plant online by July of last year, and they didn't. It was delayed. So anyway, I clicked on it, and there was a few things that were of interest to me. One is something I already knew, which is that they are repressing that Blue Note anthology, which is good news. I've already talked about it in a prior video. The other thing is what really caught my eye, and that is they are putting out an 8 LP box set of John Coltrane's A Love Supreme. So here, let me tell you exactly what they said, because it's only a short blurb, and I'll try to include a link to the article. And then VMP is probably going to put this out in the next day now that it's kind of been posted. This is what they say in the article. It says, "This single album release is getting the box set treatment with 8 discs of material, including the original album, every outtake and alternate take, and 2 live performances of the original album's track list. Physical booklets include original photo outtakes, a screen-printed poster, liner notes by music writer Jeff Weiss, and original designs by senior art director Alan Hines and art director Clay Conder." Okay, so an 8 LP box set. What I will say firstly is this sounds quite a bit like the Complete Masters, which was the edition put out in 2016 or so. That was a 3 LP release where they had all of the alternate takes from the original session, and they had it available so you could play it. Now, what we also have seen over the last couple of years are live performances that have been put out of John Coltrane playing tracks from A Love Supreme. And then we can't ignore the fact that Acoustic Sounds put out their own edition of A Love Supreme, and then after that, of course, last year, there was the UHQR of A Love Supreme by Analog Productions. So what are we supposed to do with this, I guess, is the question. Now, my understanding with this 8 LP release, is that there isn't anything, I don't think there's supposed to be any material here that's new, in terms of it never having been released. What it is, however, is a, legitimate non-bootleg release with everything theoretically in one place. So we don't have a price. We don't have any more details yet at this point, but I'm pretty confident that VMP is going to put out something more about this, probably make it available for pre-order on their website. And the fact that we know it's an 8 LP makes you think that based on other releases that VMP has put out, it might be at that sort of member price of $349, because other 8 LP box sets have been at that price point. I just don't think, though, that licensing is that much for some of these alternate takes, and I think a lot of people are going to see this as a single album. So if I was a betting man, I would say it would probably be more like in the $249 to $299 range, but obviously, what do I know? So I'm very interested to learn more about this release and find out exactly what's on it. And I think that I don't know necessarily that folks are going to be selling off their UHQRs to go and get this. But for those folks who want, again, this idea that everything is going to be in one place and not to have to sort of source it from multiple places and put it together, and if they do a good job with it, there could be a place for this box set in a lot of music appreciators' collections. But we'll have to see. All right, so the second exciting announcement that came out today, and today happens to be for me January 29th, but I tend to make these things and then I post them the following day. So for you, it'll be Tuesday the 30th. But the second announcement that came out on the 29th was Electric Recording Company. So for those of you who don't know, Electric Recording Company is based out of the UK, and they are putting out like audiophile releases to the sort of nth degree. Okay, so these are titles that, depending on the exchange rate, go for between, I think, like $450 and $600 a piece, again, depending on the exchange rate. And Electric Recording Company has their own sort of proprietary process for actually producing these things. They make them in very low quantities, typically under 350. So this particular release that was announced today is being put out in let's see, 345 copies, and they're pricing it at 395 UK pounds. And the title is Bill Evans's New Jazz Conceptions. So if this is not a familiar title to you, it was the first Bill Evans album originally put out on Riverside, I believe in 1956. And it's one that is just impossible or borderline impossible to find in its original form. There's speculation that only a few hundred copies of even the original 1956 edition were ever put out. And yeah, it's something that's impossible to find because everybody loves Bill Evans. And yeah, so it is exciting that Electric Recording Company has chosen this. And this is not the first Bill Evans title that they have chosen for their very limited series. But for somebody like me, who, by the way, I do have an original pressing, and I do wish that it was in better shape. But guess what? I forked over the money to get the Analog Productions or the Acoustic Sounds Bill Evans on Riverside box set when they reissued it like 2 years ago. And so that's what this copy is. And it's a very lovely copy, and it's in 45 RPM. And I've been enjoying it and feel like I'm not necessarily missing anything. And so it's interesting to me when you consider that, this has been reissued, right? It has received it was out on like OJC, I think in 1982 at the very least, and there's been other repressings, although to be fair, some of them swapped in alternate covers. But this thing hasn't been unavailable, especially considering this recent reissue by Acoustic Sounds. But because the sort of extreme high-end audiophile crowd loves Bill Evans, and that's one of the driving factors for Bill Evans appearing at every single record store day, I suppose it makes sense that that Electric Recording Company would be going after trying to put out this edition. So for those of you who want this type of thing, you can go over to ERC and check it out. It will sell out because every single title that they've put out sells out, and they sell out pretty quickly. And I think Bill Evans, I don't know that this is going to last more than a few days. Now, I'm not saying that to make you feel like compelled to go and spend way too much money on a single album. It's just a fact of the matter that all of the releases by ERC find a home, especially in a limited quantity of 345. All right, so here's the thing that kind of concerns me about this. I know that there's 345 people who are going to want to buy this, that are ERC people and they're Bill Evans people, and they're going to want to prioritize spending the money, and that's fine. This is my concern, and I think that I started with John Coltrane's "A Love Supreme" is probably a good example leading into this. What if Kraft decides to put this album out next year? So something that occurred to me is that Acoustic Sounds put out the Bill Evans box set, right? And since then, when that came back in print, it had been a while since anybody had been able to get, say, Waltz for Debbie or Sunday at the Village Vanguard. And the fact that it was included in a box set was still a barrier for a lot of people. And so Kraft decided to put out both Waltz for Debbie and Sunday at the Village Vanguard in the OJC series, which was great because then everybody who wants to buy that single disc can go and spend the $30 and get it. So if we knew that Kraft was going to put New Jazz Conceptions out, say, later this year or next year, would that impact the market for this ERC edition of New Jazz Conceptions at 395 UK pounds? Maybe not, because I understand that these are different types of people, right? There's like this high-end audiophile sort of thing, and then there's kind of just anybody who wants to hear the music, but they also want to hear a really great edition of it. And obviously OJC serves that need quite a bit. I'm wondering if the difference between them is going to be worth the more than 10 times, 10 times the price in order to justify getting the ERC edition. And I just wonder, here's the thing, Kraft has not announced that New Jazz Conceptions is going to be a part of their series, but I could very easily see why they would want to include it. And so here we have ERC putting it out and trying to make, $500 something with shipping to get it at least into the US. I kind of wonder. See, now I'm at the point, because I've seen it too many times, where we get a new A Love Supreme edition every year. I'm always wondering, is this the definitive edition? Am I still going to want to find out what that next one sounds like? And the answer is probably yes. And so that's just one of those realities that everybody out there has to think about anytime that any release is put out, because it's always going to be marketed in such a way. It's going to be, sourced from the original master tapes, and it's going to have great engineers on it. But we just always have to think about, is this worth jumping on? And it's something that I've struggled with ERC, I got to be honest, because I have purchased 3 of their releases in the past. And I don't own all of them anymore, because what I realized is that I didn't have value for them, or at least not value enough that corresponds with the purchase price. Fortunately, with ERC, at least typically, whatever you pay for it, you're going to get that back when you resell it. Not for every release, but I think for most of the releases, you're pretty much going to get back your purchase price. You're not necessarily going to make money on it. I wouldn't encourage people to treat it like an investment. I would only recommend people who buy this stuff be people who actually will appreciate it for everything that ERC is. And what I've found out through a little bit of trial and error is that I'm probably not exactly their target market. And many of you would tell me the same thing, because I read the comments. So in any event, for those who are interested, I did want to bring this forward and bring this to your attention, that New Jazz Conceptions is the latest release available for pre-order. I'm sure it's going to sell out. Don't know when it's going to ship, but there it is. And finally, the latest Kraft Recordings small batch series release. So what happened today was that Kraft put out on Instagram basically a grainy, extremely zoomed in image, and I'll show you what it looked like, of something, and then they were kind of teasing like, hey, the announcement's coming tomorrow. Well, it just so happened that grainy image had chains in it that were pretty recognizable, and not me, but a internet sleuth out there very quickly pointed out, well, that's Isaac Hayes' Hot Buttered Soul. So this is very interesting to me, because thus far, each of the Kraft small batch series releases have been what I would call, squarely in the jazz space. And this would be an example, or really the first title that is not squarely in the jazz space. So here's the thing: Kraft never said that the small batch series was going to be limited to to a specific genre. And here we have it. They put they sort of put their stake in the sand on this one, and it's an Isaac Hayes title. So this is his second studio album, I believe, as a leader. And, I know that it's a classic. I will say that it's not an album that I'm that familiar with. This is not something that I grew up listening to. Have I heard a track or two from it? Yes. Never listened to the entire album. So I can't, I'm not in a position actually to really tell you whether I think that this is a great choice or a bad choice, or whether there is enough, of that sort of magic in the master tapes that are going to make it sort of worthy of the small batch series. However, what I'm hearing is that a lot of people are really excited about this, and so I think that's at least encouraging, and that makes me wonder what have I been missing? Now, I guess the question is, will I be picking this title up? I haven't made a decision on that yet. I mean, you know, folks who follow my channel know that I'm just so into this genre that I'm into. And it's not because I don't appreciate other music, and it's not because I don't listen to other music. It's because if I open myself up to all genres, I would be buying way too much vinyl. And I like to specialize. So I listen to non-jazz in other formats and enjoy lots of music. It's just that the only stuff I have on vinyl is jazz. And so will the fact that it's a small batch make me feel like I need to have it on the shelves just to be just have a complete collection of small batch? No, that's not me. I'm not gonna do it for that reason. What I need to do now, ahead of, I suppose, the pre-order, is get a little bit more familiar with this album and then decide, is this something that I feel like I want to listen to on vinyl? So I'm sure that we're going to learn more. In fact, as this video comes out, we're probably going to hear later, what will be today, from Kraft about this announcement. We'll get a picture and see what it looks like. But the fact that they kind of teased it and people figured it out, wanted to bring it up and reference it in this video. So anyway, I hope this is informative. I hope people are getting excited or at least coming to the conclusion about what they're not getting excited about for any of these releases. And hope you can hope this better prepares you to decide whether you're going to pre-order or not, basically. So as always, thanks very much for your attention, and I will see you next time.